Hi everyone, I'm Mathura. I'm the Senior Program Coordinator at Arisa Foundation and I'm a Bharatanatyam dancer. Today we have Radhika with us on the podcast Native Narratives. Welcome to the podcast. We would love to know more about you.
Hello everyone, I'm Radhika. I'm a dancer and a water researcher. Currently, I'm training in Bharatnatyam and performing, and I work at the Center for Water Research at ICER Pune as a researcher. So that's me.
Awesome. We are really happy to have you here. Thank you so much
Thank you so
for
much.
your time today. Would love to begin with how did it all start? How did you get into the field of water research?
So my education background was in arts. During my 11th, 12th foundation years, I got interested in geography. And that is when I realized that maybe I would like to continue my educational journey in environment and geography related subjects, while at the same time also continuing dance training. So, fortunately, I got the opportunity to study at the Flame University, where I got a chance to do a bachelor's in liberal arts with majors in environmental studies and minor in dance. So it was a place where I could study both of my interests together parallelly. And while doing my bachelor's, it so happened that every time when we were supposed to pick up a topic for our assignments or for submissions, or in general own interest of readings, I invariably would start reading about water, rivers. Most of my assignments spoke about water pollution or water management. So that is when I started realizing that maybe in the vast spectrum of environmental studies, maybe water resource could be of interest for me as a field of specialization or interest. And that is when I decided to go for my master's, which is an MSc in Water Science Policy and Management from University of Oxford. So I completed that master's, and that is also when I realized that because I was not dancing there, couldn't dance a lot there, I realized that I also need dance with me, and I decided to come back to India. And so, yeah, since 2016, I have been working in the field of environment and water research specifically, and I have been training and dancing. Yeah.
Awesome. That's super cool, right? That's such a niche, to be honest. We would love to know more about the space and the work that you do in the space.
So, initially, I worked in the NGO sector. I worked with an organization called Kalpavriksha, where I got a chance to be a part of case study with the handloom weavers of Kutch, who are called Vankars. So we were supposed to help in creating an eco footprint of their product, of their handloom product, and that really opened up my space to understand issues related to environment, issues related to craft production, or not just craft, basically even a product production, and how that has impact on the environment, and not just on water but soil and air, etc. So, and that was also the space where I could go in depth to understand how field research is conducted, how to also conduct oneself in the field. And when we are in a very different setting, when we are in a very different socio-cultural context, how do we even navigate that space? So from there, during those years, I was also part of a network called Vikalp Sangam, which is basically trying to document different alternative solutions to environmental crisis which we see around us today. And through that, I got introduced to the ideas of organic farming and traditional water management systems. So I decided to give a chance and experiment with what it means to work with traditional water management systems and organic farming. So for a year, I worked in an organic farm as a researcher. Yeah, it was very interesting because I was in a farm every day, and I was documenting the medicinal plants. I was maintaining the seed bank, and at the same time trying to understand how do we sustainably manage water for that farm area. So it was a very nice experimental learning process for me. After that, I went on to work on a research project with Professor Vijay Paranspe. And that project was titled The Heads and Tails of Ganga. And I think it is this project that really helped me understand what rivers and river management really means. Because until then, I feel even in my educational years, most of the knowledge was very theoretical. I could define what a river is, but I think it was this project on Ganga River which really helped me understand how do I really even think about the river. So the project was although focused on Ganga, which is also something which is widely spoken about and researched about. I was really into it because the focus areas of the project were two different sections of the river, which is the heads and tails. And the heads is the cryosphere, the Himalayas, and the tails is the delta. Unfortunately, today in India, when we speak about Ganga, mostly people speak about Gangotri or Haridwar, and then Varanasi, and then Kolkata. So we forget that there is Ganga even before Haridwar, and that Ganga does not just exist in Indian part, but the entire country of Nepal is actually Ganga River Basin. So approximately 42% of water in Ganga today is flowing from the Nepal borders. So we tend to forget that space, that area, that region, which we in our project have called the heads, and therefore we have multiple heads. We are not speaking about one head of Ganga. And then looking at the tails, which is again, many people think that Ganga ends at Kolkata, right? The Hooghly River, Ganga Sagar Island. But hydrologically speaking, if we look at the history of Ganga, Ganga has been shifting her channel towards east since around past 300 years ago. So due to various geological factors, sedimentation, tectonic plates, tidal forces, etc. So and the actual river today, the main stream of Ganga River actually goes into Bangladesh, where the river is known as Padma River. And it is just one part of Ganga which still flows through Kolkata. So when we speak of the tails of Ganga, we therefore also made it plural, because we're not just talking about one mouth of Ganga to the sea, but there are multiple, and that they are situated in Bangladesh. More than half of this tails are in Bangladesh. Trying to understand this entire hydrology of the river basin was itself an eye-opener, because then we have to consider, okay, Ganga is not just an Indian river, it's also Nepal and Bangladesh's river. And then that also means that how do we look at different projects that we are trying to implement in the river basin today, that we have to consider different countries while we are trying to make management plans for the stretch which is within India. So this project was actually something which really changed the way I started looking at rivers and water management and the entire field of water sector. And now currently I'm based at the Center for Water Research at IISER Pune, where we undertake different projects related to water. Currently I'm working on conducting a very technical and a very quantitative based project, which is conducting water audit of IISER campus. And this we started this project with an idea that the water crisis in cities is becoming a huge deal, and everyone's speaking about it, everyone is interested in it, and everyone wants to know what can be done about it. So we thought, before we go and tell people what can be done about it, we thought, why not let's first study our own campus, what is happening in our campus, and for which we are now in the process of conducting the water audit to understand how are we using the water, where are we wasting the water, and where can we save and how can we save. And then probably based on that, come up with policy recommendations for the institute and as well as for, hopefully, slowly at a larger scale. So yeah, that's the kind of work that I'm currently in the water sector.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I did not know so many things about Ganga, which I found out in the last couple of minutes. So that's super fascinating.
Yeah, so imagine what must be happening to me when I was reading all of this. And yeah, Yeah. So yeah.
That's super cool. I think I'm just curious to know the research that you are doing right now at ICER. Because, in Pune, we are seeing that, there's flash floods, flooding in areas we have never seen before, right? Koth Road or Srinagar Road. And at the same time, there is a water crisis every year, which is now getting bigger and bigger every summer. So are there some interesting findings from research till now? What could be the reasons for it?
So, sometimes I feel climate crisis or the issues that you're speaking about today are very scientific, but at the same time, I feel they're also very common sense level based, because it's simple now, right? The way the city is growing, we have almost captured all the small drainage systems, all the small streams and the nalas, which were previously draining out water, which was helping the water during monsoons to spread across and not flood in a specific region. With the way we are building up complexes and the way we are building our roads, we have completely demolished those network channels within the city. And with that, we have, of course, we have concretization. And to add to that, the monsoons have changed in the sense that this is something that people always ask, is it going to rain less or more with climate change? And I think what studies are showing that the amount of rainfall that, for example, Pune city was receiving and is receiving is the same. It's not like, oh, it's raining a lot more or it's raining less in terms of volume. But what has changed is that the intensity of rains within a few days. So earlier, volume of water which would rain down in a week, now we find that it's raining down in 1 or 2 days. So therefore, the capacity of the drainage systems, the stormwater drainage system, which in fact do not even exist in some part of the cities, they are not able to contain that intense level of rainfall. So therefore, we see all these urban floods and all these issues. So it's a combination of urban planning, or let's say lack of urban planning to some extent, and compiled with the changing rainfall patterns, which have become very erratic. So that's the flooding part. With the summer scarcity issues, I think it's got more to do with the way our consumption patterns have changed. There is a huge gap between demand and supply. So the rate at which the city is growing, the population is growing, the rate at which we see, the outskirts of the Pune city growing, we know for a fact that Pune as a city depends a lot on groundwater, on wells, bore wells. So from surface water or from PMC supplied water, we have also gone into extensively using groundwater resources. And it so happens that during summers, the groundwater tables drop because we have a lot of wells and bore wells which have come up in the last few decades, and compiled with the fact that the city is growing at a very fast rate. So it's a combination of multiple things, actually, I think. And
Yeah. So I think these problems are way more complex than we perceive them to be, right?
yeah, it's very interesting, like as a person who's trying to study all of this, trying to document all of these processes of urbanization, flooding, etc. Sometimes I wonder, I'm also part of the problem. And similar to others, I also have aspirations. How do we tell people, okay, do not come into the city anymore, or you stay where you are, you be in the villages? Because my own family has migrated from a village to the city, and that has changed our way of living drastically, based on the quality of education that me and my sister could get, the healthcare quality, and overall access to so many facilities which are there in the urban environments, which unfortunately are not there in the rural areas. So I think it's also a very complicated psychologically, because we are speaking about neuroscience, I think it's also a very psychological phenomena of how do we look at growth and development, and what do we perceive to be growth, development, or even success for that matter. Because that is where this buildings and cars and roads and transport come in, because we're talking about materialistic well-being, right? Yeah, I don't know, because I can't say that no, materialistic well-being is not important. Because I'm also a part of it. So I think, yes, it's a very complex journey and a process, because, yeah, the issues are so complex.
I think putting an economist, a sociologist, a psychologist, an architect, an urban planner, a biologist, an environmentalist, and whatnot. I think I'm forgetting a bunch of other professions. Putting them together in the room could be a good start.
Yeah, I think so, because in fact, when it comes to water-related issues or water resource management, this is something that senior researchers and scholars have been repeatedly saying, that the way we have looked at water bodies and water management systems in India and also all over the world has been very technical and very engineering oriented. This kind of solutions that are evolving are also very technological driven, which sometimes do not pay heed to the social or the cultural aspects or the environmental aspects. So yes, you rightly said, I think all the different disciplines need to come together. Otherwise, we are only going to find solutions which are very linear, which are going to only lead us to more complicated situations. So yeah.
Super interesting. I think let's switch gears a little bit. Would love to now know more about your dance journey. I personally am a fan of your dance. So yeah, where did it all start and how have you continued through everything that you've been doing?
I think I started dancing like almost every other girl, because my mom wanted both of her daughters to be on stage. She had a very simple aspiration that both her daughters should be on stage in school gatherings. So, so she sent me to Bharatanatyam and my younger sister to Kathak. And it just so happened that I started taking more interest in dance, and especially I think during teenage years, 9, 10, those formative years, I started realizing that dance is becoming my identity. So in schools, when there would be any dance related event, I would be called in, oh, she's a dancer, get her. Or at home, when in the society, I would dance in Ganpati Utsav or things like that. So I started realizing that maybe it's something I'm good at, or maybe it's something that I can do. So that sort of external environment, at the same time, personal journey of finding focus, because I was initially not a very good student, in the sense like I was not a very academically bright student. But I think that when I started dancing seriously in school times, it just meant going to classes regularly, not bunking them. Just that, I started realizing that my confidence is improving, my stage fear is going, and which also started reflecting in my health and in my overall personality. And that made me decide that I want to continue dancing. I think I was not even aware of what it means to be a professional dancer at that point, because I don't come from an artist's family, or I do not come from a family where becoming a dancer can be seen as a profession or a goal as well. So I just felt that I enjoy doing this, I like doing this, and I want to continue. So that is when I decided, as I mentioned, I decided to take arts for my 11th, 12th. And from there, fortunately, I went to do my bachelor's in environmental studies and dance. And my bachelor's in environmental studies and dance minor was actually very interesting, because it opened up very different dimensions of dance for me. So at Flame, my dance minor was along with theatre students.
Okay.
So many of the courses that I had to do, or took up were along with theatre students. So I went through movement class. I went through basic theatre class. I would be some of the extras in their plays or something. And then we also had a very specific dance Bharatnatyam course, which was headed by Priya Joshi, and that was also the time when I got exposed to different kinds of dance. So we had contemporary dance workshops, we had salsa workshops, we had Parvati Datta coming in for an Odissi workshop. So we had Parimal Dada who came in for a choreography session, and very different teachers. We had Shamla Vanarase who taught us dance criticism. I don't know who else has taught it in Pune anymore. And we had Smita Tai who taught us dance theory and dance history. So it was quite a range of subjects which got covered under dance. We had Manasi Tai, Manasi Vaze, who with her we had a very interesting course called Autobiography and Performance. So we took up the autobiography of Isadora Duncan.
Oh,
and yes, and
what a legend she is.
Yes, and for 3 months, our task was just to read her autobiography and come back to the class and discuss and, understand her process of being a dancer and artist that she was, and ultimately culminating into a performance. So I think...
And literature, sorry to disturb.
Yeah. So there was Bharatnatyam class where I was learning proper Margam compositions and Abhinaya pieces, and at the same time I was also getting exposed to these avenues of looking at dance and understanding dance. So I think those 4 years at Flame really changed the way I started looking at dance and how I would like to continue dance. And but it was also the time where I had to then decide whether I want to go for a master's or not. And I'm glad today that I went for my master's. But it was also the year when I was not able to dance a lot because I was abroad for the first time. I was in a very different country, region, and very different climate. So I was not dancing very often. And that also made me realize that I would be a very unhappy person if I stopped dancing. So that's when so that made me decide to come back to India and decide that now I want to dance properly, which properly meant that because in all of these journeys, I was learning under different teachers. Initially Geeta Sharma, then I was with Priya Tai and multiple other teachers. So my training was also a bit half-baked. So I realized I needed someone to just sit down with me and, make me work at my Diditai.
Right.
Like just that. And thankfully, Shraddha Tai agreed to do that for me. So I went up to her, and so her condition was that she's ready to teach me, but I should not be performing for 5 years because my foundation is still a bit shaky, and I should be giving more time to the foundation. And if I start thinking of performances, I will not have that leisure to learn at my own pace. So that was in 2016. And thus began journey with Shraddha Tai. With her, we started with the Tattadav again, all over again, and polishing so many things, so many, just the Anga Shuddham part of it. We worked on it for a very long time. And so that journey was going on, while at the same time I was also working in Kalpavriksha. So I was balancing between the two. And then during COVID, I also got a chance to learn from Viraja Tai and Shamanna, who are Shraddha Tai's classmates and colleagues from the dance field. So I continued my journey with them. And now I'm grateful that I'm now getting an opportunity to train and learn under Meenakshi Srinivasan Akka.
Wow.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps. So now I'm with Akka and going deeper into the nuances of dance and what it really means when we say we are dancing Nritta, what it really means to have a dancer's body, just for that matter. And yes, exploring so many dimensions of dance. So yeah, that's where I am in the dance journey, I would say. Along with it, sometimes whenever I get an opportunity, I perform. I love to perform solos. I also have been part of some group productions. I'm also in the process of creating, choreographing, breaking down my own ideas and choreographies and exploring different ideas. So yeah.
Awesome. I think listening to the story of your undergrad at Play, I want to go back and do my undergrad all over
Again. I know. I think that under those 4 years have really laid the foundation for me, in the sense that many people ask me, oh, what is science, dance? They're so different. How do you connect? And it's so contradictory. And then I started thinking, what is it? Like, I think sometimes we start thinking when someone else asks us a question. And that made me realize that my brain got wired to function in that way at Flame, because from a 7:30 movement class, we'll go into a biology class, then a dance criticism class, then an atmospheric physics class, and then into a Bharatanatyam practical class. So the day itself was planned in such a way that I think that's where I learned how to navigate these spaces. I think that time I must have found it difficult, definitely. But now for me, it feels like a smooth transition. I don't feel like, oh, now I'm working on science and okay, now I'm working on something arts. It just connected. So, and also I think at a philosophical level, I don't know. Sometimes I think whether it was a conscious choice or just mind conditioning that I went to do my specialization in water, because water flows and body flows and it dances, and I don't know. I know for sure that it was not a conscious decision from my side to say that no, I want to study water because there is flow and movement and rhythm in water, which is also in dance. But I think and I think it is at that level where I feel that both the fields are similar. They are speaking to each other. Not necessarily all the time. It's not like every day when I'm doing my research and like, I'm also dancing. That's not what it is. But there are moments of realization, that confluence where I feel that no, actually, I think I'm trying to study and understand some similar ideas and concepts. And yeah, so I think this research project, which we spoke about when we met, Rites of Rivers Through the Lens of Bharatanatyam, also happened to be one of the confluence points which I found, which now I think now I don't find that anymore. It's there. Now I'm again back to, okay, very serious traditional Bharatanatyam Margam training with Akka and very technical water-oriented project. But I think within 2-3 years, I might again find a different confluence. So both the journeys are going simultaneously, parallelly, I think. And sometimes they cross over and it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I think essentially all the arts and sciences evolved from one head, so to say.
Yeah.
That's philosophy.
Yeah.
Right? That's how it all began. Like we started kind of deconstructing things and classifying things for our own convenience. But we have forgotten that they are in some ways, and not some ways, a lot of ways connected and related to each other. And careers, I believe, are 20th century's innovation. And it's high time now that we stop looking at them at, just in a singular way and look at them with multiple perspectives. Even the problems that the world faces today and will face in the future will need people who come from backgrounds such as yours, right? Come from backgrounds where they can have those multiple perspectives and solve those complex problems that we talked about in the first part. So, yeah, I think it's, and I wouldn't ask you that question, how do you manage the two? Because it, as you said, it flows, right?
Yeah, yeah, it does flow. But no, I also feel that the difficult part is the management of the two. And because philosophically, yes, they are connected, but there are days where it's physically, emotionally, mentally extremely draining because you're trying to be good at two things at the same time. It's not like, okay, I'm going to look at this as a hobby and I'm fine if I'm not good at it anymore. It's not that, right? I'm trying to expand my abilities in both the fields, whether it's research or dance. And yes, it is difficult to navigate. And I think here I would like to really acknowledge all the support and encouragement that I have received from my family, from my teachers, from the colleagues whom I work with, my mentors who see me day in and day out trying to struggle and manage between the two, but at the same time insist that I continue at both. And I think I also owe it to my dance teachers who never asked me to stop working or stop doing job and like just insist that, okay, just do this. And at the same time, I would like to really thank all the professors and the mentors who did not consider my inclination towards dance as just being, oh, that's like, just hobby. I'm grateful that they respected and valued my urge and need to keep dancing. So I don't think it would have been possible without this kind of support from everyone around me. Yeah. So I think they help a lot to balance because there are times when I'm not able to, and I know that someone lets me go for a while, saying like, okay, for 2 days you take a break, finish that work off, and then come back to it. And I think having seniors and mentors and also colleagues do that for you is a huge need. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. We are really happy that we are able to see you work in both the spaces because this podcast wouldn't have been possible without that. So thank you so much. I think one common thread that I have seen in your work, as you said, as you went deeper into the field of water research and also dance, there are more and more realizations that came in. Your view became more holistic, right? Are there any other skills, mindsets, or learnings, if you may, you have seen in both the worlds parallelly?
So, with regards to mindset or skill set needed in these fields, I think they're different, but at the same time, they help each other. Because of my dance training, I think I have learned how to focus. It gives me a sense of grounding. It has taught me to try and understand myself a bit more, which I think helps in the research field because I need to focus. Like, right? Research is a lot about focus because there are days when you start reading about something and then you go into something else and then into something else and then you don't know your day is gone. So I think that ability to focus and be grounded even when we speak of research is something that I think how dance helps me here. And at the same time, this is something that I'm feeling. I don't feel the confidence, I would say very honestly, to state it as a fact. But the more I do research, the more people I meet in the water sector and the environment sector, I'm feeling that the crisis that people keep speaking about, the water crisis, the environment crisis, is not just related to the economic growth or the infrastructure or the, the material aspect of it, but it is also a lot to do with how are we able to or not able to emotionally connect with water, with soil, with nature, with the environment per se. And I think it's that emotional connection which dance helps me maintain and keep intact, even when I'm reading or trying to document or trying to research about a very technical aspect of water, a hydrological aspect of water. So I think that emotional aspect is something, it keeps me sensitive, it keeps me grounded. And at the same time, I feel from the research point of view, I think the fact that I get the opportunity, and I'm so grateful that every time I think I try to keep reminding myself that the kind of people I get to meet, the researchers, scholars, the kind of work that they are doing, and just having an opportunity to sit across the table and have a conversation with them is very enriching. And I think how that enriches my dance is it helps me be aware of what is happening around me, and it keeps me anchored. Ki, हाँ Radhika, it's nice to have creative outbursts and imaginations and be all creative and philosophical, but at the same time, you're surrounded by something which is very grounded and very real, and which is also something that you as an individual or a human being have to address and deal with. So I think both these fields in that way help each other. And yes, I think as a dancer, you have to be a researcher, right? Like, right? So, yeah, and to be a good, I think, researcher, you need to have a very sensitive mind. So it's not, it just feeds into each other. I like to articulate it this way, that dance helps me in my internal journey, and the research or the water research sector helps me to understand my external processes. So in a way,
Interesting.
yeah, right. Because that's how I've been trying to understand even what I'm doing. Because there are days when I'm like, what am I doing? So yeah. So I think that is how it helps. And I think my teacher, my yoga teacher Pranati Tai, she has also been very instrumental in helping me understand how these two can come together in her own way, in her own yoga teachings. And that's on a very philosophical level, and on a very practical level, I constantly try to remind myself. My professor, Rahul Chopra, who's also one of my mentors, and on the day of our graduation, he had called in all of us, all the students who were graduating, and he had said this line. I still remember this, and I think everyone can remember this, is there will come a point in your careers where there will not be any task which you won't be able to do. You will have learned all the skill sets that you will need to complete a task. Right? For example, when it comes to dance, I might hopefully reach a point where I'm able to perform well, I'm able to do my choreographies well, I'm able to understand the music, the tala patterns, and the raga structure of a composition, and I'm able to understand the layers, the subtext of a poetry and a piece, and hopefully able to bring it into the body and execute it. So I hopefully I reach that point. And in the research sector, I hopefully reach to a point where, I'm able to join dots. But after reaching that point, which is the journey, the learning journey, he said that there will come a point where there will be no task which you won't be able to do. And at that point, the only thing will matter is how you manage your time. And yeah, and I think it boils down to that how am I managing my everyday routine on an everyday basis? And yeah, so I try to keep reminding myself of these things. And time management is something which is important in both the fields. It's a skill set needed in both the fields, right? So yeah, it's some things like that which I think help and build across both the fields. So so yeah, and then Professor Suneti Vadalkar, she's a beautiful watercolor painter and an artist, and uh, she speaks about how it is so important to focus, no, and how when she's painting, she forgets about the external world and the life and all the hustle that is happening around, and just look at how that color just flowed from one part of the canvas to the other. And I think, yeah, that is the kind of level of focus and concentration that I should, in fact, bring into my dance practice and into my research practice. So I think we're speaking about similar ideas, but through different experiences. And I think experiences in both the fields and both the worlds keep helping each other. So they keep nurturing. Yeah.
A lot to take away from everything that you just said, I guess. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's also a nice processing for me to think about yeah.
And I think lastly, I would like to know what is it that you're looking forward to in dance, in water research, and the confluence of both. Would you like to share with us?
Honestly, I have no idea. Like, I've really been giving this a thought, but I really don't know, because sometimes I feel, yeah, I know for a fact that I want to be good at both, and I want to be a good dancer. And by what a good dancer means, probably the definitions will keep changing and then also get complicated with, okay, then what is a bad dancer? So yeah, so without getting into the uh, technicalities and the complexity of that question, yeah, but I think I would like to be a good dancer, a sincere, dedicated dancer, and do justice to what I am learning, and at the same time be a good researcher, an ethical good researcher, and yeah, what that means and what that needs. So I think right now I'm at that space, in that space that yes, I want to be good at both because I enjoy both, and I have some idea of what I would like to do, but I don't even know if I think I would say something, and then after 2 years, I don't know what if I will be doing that. So so I don't know. I'm very curious because I think the journey until now was not very planned. So I yeah, I think so, right? So I don't know. I'm just curious and trying to be as grounded as possible with every opportunity and every occasion that comes my way. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been such an honor hosting you here on the podcast. And keep on with your curiosity and exploration. We would love to know more what happens in the future. Your projects, your research projects, your dance projects. Thank you so much for your time today.
And I would also like to say thank you so much for having me here. And I wish all the best to Arisa Foundations and all the team members, because I think this is a beautiful process and a beautiful platform that is being created. Even the possibility of people trying to do multiple things or trying to look at things from holistic perspective are being spoken about, or the ideas are being discussed, I think is a very crucial need of the time. So thank you so much for opening up this space for such beautiful conversations. Thank you so much.
So this was episode 6 of Native Narratives. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please let us know in the comments if there are any other fields that you are juggling with and how you are enjoying that. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.